I always felt like an outsider in my own family, like I was living in someone else's house, playing the role of a son they never really wanted. Growing up, I watched my siblings win trophies, bring home straight A's, land scholarships, and receive applause at every family gathering while I sat quietly in the corner, trying to shrink myself down so small that maybe nobody would notice the disappointment in my father's eyes or the forced, pitying smile on my mother's face. I remember the day my older brother Mark got accepted into an Ivy League school. There was a huge party, balloons, a banner that said "Congratulations, future doctor." Relatives flew in from other states, everyone cheering, champagne popping, and I sat there holding a slice of cake I didn't want, thinking about how just the night before, I had tried to show my dad a website I had built from scratch at 14, and he barely glanced at it before pushing my laptop aside to watch a sports game. My dad used to say things like, "Dreams are for idiots who can't handle real work, and a man's worth is in his salary and how many people depend on him." Words that stuck to my skin like thorns. My mom, meanwhile, just looked tired. All the time, she tried to mediate, saying things like "Your dad just wants what's best for you." But even her eyes told me she had given up fighting a long time ago. Every dinner table conversation revolved around my brother's medical internships, my sister's law school debates, my cousin's high-profile engineering jobs, and when they finally glanced at me, it was always with the same question. "So, what exactly are you doing with your life now?" I wanted to scream every time, but instead, I swallowed my words like shards of glass. I started staying up late at night, learning to code by reading free forums and watching blurry YouTube tutorials in secret, because I knew if anyone found out, they'd mock me or try to save me from wasting my time. I remember the small moments, the feeling of cold, instant noodles on my tongue at 3 a.m., the quiet satisfaction when I finally figured out how to fix a bug after days of frustration, the adrenaline rush of seeing my first web app run without crashing. I started freelancing under a fake name at 16, building small sites for local businesses, saving every single dollar in a hidden bank account because I didn't want my parents to manage my money for me. They always said I was too irresponsible to handle finances. By the time I graduated high school, my siblings had already received cars as graduation gifts, fully funded trips to Europe, and brand new apartments near their universities. I got a worn-out backpack and a good luck handshake. I pretended to enroll in college to keep them off my back, but instead, I rented a tiny, damp, studio apartment with peeling paint and a mattress on the floor. And every single day I worked, sometimes 18, 20 hours straight, living off cheap coffee and peanut butter sandwiches, fingers trembling on the keyboard, eyes burning from the screen glow. While my siblings posted vacation selfies from Paris and Dubai, I posted nothing, while they flaunted internships at big law firms and hospitals. I taught myself how to pitch to investors, got laughed out of rooms, got called a clueless kid, and kept going anyway. Every rejection felt like another knife, but somewhere deep inside, a small ember kept burning. The dream of building something that was truly mine. By 22, after 3 failed startups and thousands of sleepless nights, my 4th idea started to catch fire. I built a platform that helped small local artisans sell globally, combining all my coding skills with my deep hatred for seeing people dismissed and undervalued, a hatred rooted, ironically, in my own family's treatment of me. Investors finally started listening. I remember my first big meeting when someone called me sir instead of kid, and I nearly burst into tears right there. With every small win, I upgraded from ramen to real meals, from a mattress on the floor to an actual bed frame, from despair to cautious hope. Meanwhile, my family still thought I was a nobody. They'd occasionally send me passive-aggressive texts like, "When are you going to get a real job?" Or, "Don't you think it's time you gave up on that childish dream?" I stopped replying after a while, pouring everything into my company instead. I hired a small team, people just like me, underdogs, misfits, dreamers with scars on their souls. We worked in a cramped co-working space with a leaky ceiling, but every day felt like a step closer to freedom. When the company finally blew up, it happened almost overnight. A viral feature on a major news site, a sudden flood of orders, investors throwing money at us like confetti. I remember that night vividly. We were all in the office, half asleep on beanbags, when the traffic stats shot through the roof. We screamed. We danced. Someone popped cheap sparkling wine, and I stepped outside into the cold night air, staring at the stars and crying silently, because for the first time ever, I felt like I truly existed. I moved us into a real office downtown, a sleek glass building with my name on the lease. The same name my father used to spit out like poison at family dinners. I still didn't tell my family. I didn't feel the need to prove anything to them anymore. They had become background noise to my actual life. I started focusing on building partnerships, mentoring young founders, supporting charities my family would have laughed at. Then, life threw the ultimate plot twist. My father's business, a generational family business he always claimed was too big to fail, started crumbling due to mismanagement and poor investments. My brother, who had become a high-powered doctor, was drowning in lawsuits from malpractice claims. My sister was on the verge of divorce after a scandal that threatened to destroy her law firm. Suddenly, the same family who mocked me, who left me out of photos, who called me the lazy dreamer, needed jobs. They found out through a mutual acquaintance about a very successful new company downtown that was known for paying well and taking care of its people. Desperate and panicking, they marched into the reception area of my building one morning, heads held high, talking down to the receptionist, dropping the family name as if it were some magic key. I was watching the whole thing from my glass office. Upstairs, I saw them in their ill-fitting suits, forced smiles, clutching outdated resumes. My father still carried himself like a king, scolding my mother for standing wrong, correcting my sister's grammar, and berating my brother for fidgeting too much. My stomach twisted. Part of me felt the old ache, the craving for their love, the terrified child inside me begging to be seen. But that part was quickly drowned by a calm, clear wave of realization. I didn't need them anymore. They thought they were meeting with a faceless CEO, some young hotshot, as my father put it loudly to the receptionist, mocking. I told my assistant to bring them into the main conference room. When I stepped inside, carrying my laptop and a quiet confidence they had never seen before, they didn't recognize me at first. My father didn't even look up. He just gestured impatiently and said, "Coffee, please. And don't interrupt us while we're talking to your boss." I sat at the head of the table, opened my laptop, and watched as one by one, their expressions changed. First confusion, then horror, then pure, naked fear. My father's mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mother dropped her purse, papers spilling everywhere. My brother looked like he might pass out, and my sister actually started crying. I leaned forward, looked each of them in the eyes, and said calmly, "I believe you came here to meet the CEO, so, let's talk." Silence. Heavy, suffocating, earth-shaking silence. I gave them a chance to speak. My father tried to recover, stuttering something about family sticking together. My mother whimpered about just wanting to reconnect. My brother muttered about needing opportunities. My sister tried to spin some sob story about being misunderstood. All the years of insults, the dinners where I was the joke, the birthdays I spent alone, the cold shoulders, the endless reminders that I was the disappointment. They all played in my mind like a cruel home movie. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't think we have any roles that fit your skill sets. You see, we're looking for people who believe in others, even when no one else does." Their faces fell, and they started begging. Actual tears, actual hands clasped in desperation, from people who once wouldn't even pass me the salt. At dinner, I stood up, closed my laptop, and said, "I wish you all the best." Then I walked out, leaving them sitting there in a broken pile of pride and regret. After I got back to my office, I sat in my chair and felt something I had never felt before: peace. Not the kind that comes from revenge, but the deep, solid peace of finally choosing myself. Later that evening, I looked at the family group chat, dozens of missed calls, angry texts, guilt trips, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. I deleted the chat, blocked their numbers, and stared out of my office window at the city lights that looked like stars fallen to earth. That night, I didn't celebrate with champagne or parties. I ordered takeout from my favorite small restaurant, the one owned by an immigrant couple I had once helped set up their online store for free. I sat in my minimalist apartment, still smelling faintly of coffee and startup hustle, and thought about that kid eating noodles at 3 a.m., that kid who just wanted to be seen. I realized that the only person who ever really needed to see me was myself. Now, I spend my days mentoring young entrepreneurs who remind me of that scared, scrappy version of me. I donate to underfunded schools, fund scholarships for kids who get written off as lazy or unrealistic, and I go to bed each night knowing that I broke a toxic cycle. Sometimes I get messages from distant relatives calling me cold, heartless, ungrateful, but I don't feel the urge to reply. My life isn't a PR campaign for their approval anymore, and as I watch my company grow, as I see lives change through the opportunities we create, I feel that ember inside me, the one that burned through all the loneliness and rejection, grow into a bonfire that lights up my entire world. So here's what I want to ask you. If you had the chance to finally prove yourself to the people who always doubted you, would you take it? Or would you walk away, knowing your value no longer depends on their applause? Could you forgive them and let them in? Or would you finally set yourself free, the way I did? Let me know in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that you are allowed to succeed quietly, to build your own empire in the shadows, to rise on your own terms without anyone else's permission. Thank you for listening to my story.